Hey, buddy.
Good day.
Yes, sir.
So we're back again. I took a week off because I wasn't feeling that great and had some visitors in town. So we finished out Rule 12 when we were at the beach, and now we're on to Rule 13 in White Magic. Just take it here from the top. It's a pretty short rule, so I'm not sure if we'll
It's
make
a
it.
very powerful rule that
Yeah.
when you study white magic, for whatever reason, when I find myself back at this rule a lot.
Mhm.
Inside of when I'm in this program, and I'll type in some keywords, it's in there a lot. So it's important for sure. It's covering down on a lot of what the common things that I've been searching are in for whatever reason. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. So from the top, Rule 13. The magician must recognize the four. Note in his work the shade of violet they evidence, and thus constructed the shadow. When this is so, the shadow clothes itself, and the four become the seven. Rule 13 is broke.
Yeah,
What's
and
that?
we can see this on the chart, right? The top four, we add to them the lower three.
Yep. The four become the seven. Rule 13 is broken out into two subsections: the quaternaries to be recognized and the precipitation of thought forms. So the quaternaries to be recognized. So this rule is for me one of the most difficult to explain. The reason for this being threefold. Reason one, the number of people in physical incarnation at this time who can work in a truly creative manner and profit by the information given in this rule is exceedingly few. Only to the white magician, and he experienced in his work, can the real interpretation be given. There is much danger in imparting the significance of these rules to those who are not qualified in themselves to work correctly. We will therefore consider the qualifications required of those who are entitled to this knowledge, so that the student can begin to develop in himself that which may be lacking. The second reason, the danger of minute and detailed instructions, consists in the fact that were they now to be given to the world, we should be flooded with thought forms, and these thought forms would be created in order to express purely selfish desire, and mental matter would be swept away into activity in line with the fancies and the whims of the undeveloped along spiritual lines. It must be remembered that every human thought, whether the potent mass thoughts or individual dynamic ideas, must eventually emerge objectively on the physical plane. This is an inevitable and unalterable rule, and due consideration of this law which governs mental substance will show the danger of wrong thought and the power of right. The potency of human thought at this time is primarily of mass description, for few there are who can think creatively. Public opinion, mass ideas, the tendencies of human desire and thought are not at this time of the highest order, and the physical precipitation of these vague and inchoate thoughts, distinguished by a vast similarity and colored by selfish intent and personal behest, and based upon likes and dislikes, prejudices and longings, can be seen in the most interesting precipitation. The vast assembly of insects which now haunt our planet and cause increasing concern to the scientist, agriculturist, and all those dealing with the welfare of the human animal are the direct result of thought precipitation.
I think I just read this. I must have just read this in the last few days, actually. and not why? Two reasons, and this is going to be funny, why my initial statement about this came up. I was looking at masses. So over here it says mass ideas, right? So I had searched masses. And then, the other day I had this question about insects. because there's just so, I'm like, where does this fit in
Mhm.
to this whole thing? Where do I put these insects at? You know, and I'm not gonna go reading, I don't feel like reading The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall all through again. I had read that at one point about insects, but um a lot of these are, he says, if it's not in this section, this is what I want to tell you about insects. Uh, predators of this earth are will be removed systematically.
Hmm.
So predators of danger, like anything, even animal predators and human predators and are going to be shifted out.
Hmm.
Super wild. Yeah. All right. Sorry.
Interesting. No,
Yeah.
that's a good thought. Um, okay, so I have not time to enlarge upon this fact, but I can assure you that as men learn to think with more unselfishness and with greater purity, and as malice and hatred and competition give place to brotherhood, kindness, and cooperation, the insect pest, as it is now called, will most surely die out.
All right. Well, there you go.
There you go. And the third reason why this is most difficult for DK to explain is another difficulty which I experienced in elucidating these rules lies in the fact that it is today more easy to prove the fact that there is a realm of mind than it is to prove that there is a realm of the ether, even though scientists use the word widely. This rule concerns the 4 grades of etheric substance, which constitute the etheric envelope of all forms and nature, from a mountain to an ant and from a plant to an atom. Certain scientists recognize the fact of an etheric body, vast numbers do not, and from the standpoint of the masses of humanity, it remains unrecognized. That which lies closest to us and in our immediate foreground is often overlooked, and it has interested those of us who teach and guide to note how much emphasis is laid upon psychic and astral phenomena, and how little attention is paid to the more obvious and more easily discerned etheric forms and forces. Given a slight change in the present mode of visual focusing, it will be found that the human eye is capable of including an entirely new field of perception and of awareness. Blindly, men introvert their unconsciousness and become aware of astral objects and that elusive world of ever-changing forms in which we live and move and have our being, and yet they fail to see that which lies immediately before them. These 3 difficulties of 1, lack of qualification, 2, dangers inherent in unconscious form building, and 3, etheric blindness, make it well nigh impossible for me to do full justice to this rule and to elucidate the work on etheric levels, and hence the relative brevity of the elucidation. In dealing with the subject of qualification and answering the question, what constitutes the equipment needed by a white magician, I would say one thing. All students realize that certain requirements must be met if a man is to be entrusted with any measure of understanding of the technique of the great work. I take it for granted, however, that the character qualifications are not those to which our question refers. All aspirants know, and down the agents have been taught, that a clean mind and a pure heart, love of truth, and a life of service and unselfishness are prime prerequisites, and where they are lacking, naught avails and none of the great secrets can be imparted. You might well say here, we have also been taught that there exist those who work in the 4 ethers and who undoubtedly perform magical deeds, yet who do not possess this essential purity and loving kindness to which reference has been made. This is undoubtedly true. They belong to a group of workers in matter whom we call black magicians. They are highly developed intellectually and can motivate mental substance or mind stuff in such a manner that it can achieve objectivity on the physical plane and bring about their deep intent. About this group, there is much misunderstanding and profound ignorance. It is perhaps as well, for their destiny is tied up with the future race, the 6th, and their end and their end and the cessation of their activities will come about in that far distant aeon which is technically called the sixth round. The final break or division between the so-called black and white forces for this particular world cycle will take place during the period of the sixth root race in the present round. Towards the close of the sixth root race, before the emergence, oops, just lost my place there. Towards the close of the sixth root race, before the emergence of the seventh, we shall have the true Armageddon about which so much has been taught. A small cycle corresponding to this final battle and cleavage will appear during the sixth subrace, which is now in process of formation. The world war, which just has taken place in our present cycle of separativeness and upheaval, do not constitute the real Armageddon. The war which is told to us in the Mahabharata and the present war had the roots of their trouble and the seeds of the disasters which they brought about. One in the lower and one in the higher astral world. Selfishness and desire of a low order were the impulses back of them both. The coming great division will have its roots in the mental world and will consummate in the sixth subrace. In the sixth root race, it will have the seeds of portentous disaster in the coordinated triplicity of mind, astralism, and physical nature, which will bring about a climaxing moment for the planetary duality. Beyond that, we need not go, for the humanity of the sixth round will be so different in nature to ours that those who will differentiate into the black and the white forces will be so unlike what we now understand by the words that we need not concern ourselves with that far distant problem. Let it be remembered that the true black magician, I refer not here to a person with a tendency to black magic, is a soulless entity. He is a being in whom the ego is, as we understand the term today, non-existent. It is oft overlooked and seldom grasped or told that they, therefore, do not exist in physical bodies. Their world is ever the world of illusion. They work from the lower mental plane, on desire matter, and on the sentient desire bodies of those on the physical plane who are swept by delusion and held in the bonds of extreme selfishness and self-centeredness. What the ignorant call a black magician on the physical plane is only some man or woman sensitive to or on rapport with a true black magician on the astral plane. This relationship is only possible when there have been many lives of selfishness, low desire, perverted intellectual aspiration, and love of the lower psychism, and this only when the man has been held willingly in thrall by them. Such men and women are few and far between, for unadulterated selfishness is rare indeed. Where it exists, it is exceedingly potent, as are all one-pointed tendencies. The clue to the requirements of a more esoteric kind is given to us in Rule 13. The magician must recognize the four. He has presumably built up a fine character. He has educated himself for service. His aspiration is true and steady. He is living purely and unselfishly. He has mastered somewhat the meaning of meditation. He now has to begin to train himself in what is called occult recognition. This rule is a most interesting example of the many connotations and numerous correspondences which can be conveyed in a few simple words. We are told that he must recognize the four. The Treatise on Cosmic Fire tells us, this means literally that the magician must be in a position to discriminate between the different ethers and to note the special hue of the different levels, thereby ensuring a balanced building of the shadow. He recognizes them in the occult sense. That is, he knows their note and key and is aware of the particular type of energy they embody. Enough emphasis has not been laid upon the fact that the three higher levels of the etheric plane are in vibratory communication with the three higher planes of the cosmic physical plane. And they, with their ensphering fourth level, have been called in the occult books the inverted tetractys. That's like a, isn't that Treatise? Isn't that like a triangle of some sort?
Yeah, I've looked it up before, actually.
Like the triangle that has 10 points, starting with 4 at the base to 3 to the 2 to the 1. It has some significance, I think, in Pythagorean theory or something like that.
10 points arranged in 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, and 4 points in each row, which is the geometrical representation of the 4th triangular number. The Treatise was an illustration of existence of the way everything is structured in the universe by the Pythagoreans.
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah, so if we look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3. Yeah, and it's like, it could fit into the our chart is way sufficient, I think. I don't know.
Well, here it refers to as inverted, so I don't know, but that might be this came out of a treatise on cosmic fire, so that might be some side research there. But anyway, so a communication of these 3 higher planes of the cosmic physical plane, and they with the ensuing 4th level have been called in the occult books the inverted tetractys. It is this knowledge which puts the magician in possession of the 3 types of planetary force and their combination, or the 4th type, and thus releases for him that vital energy which will drive this idea into objectivity. As the different types of forces meet and coalesce, a dim, shadowy form clothes itself upon the vibrating astral and mental sheath, and the idea of the solar angel is attaining definite concretion. So that all came out of cosmic fire. The obvious and most apparent meaning is, therefore, recognition of the 4 ethers. But this is in its turn dependent upon other meanings and based upon the recognition of other quaternaries. I would like to give a short resume of some of the qualifications needed by the white magician and some of the recognitions which will gradually emerge in his consciousness. First, he must recognize that the 4 that constitute the 1. In other words, the first quaternary that he must know and know well is that which he is essentially himself. 1, physical body, sensitive, emotional nature, mind, and soul. 2, soul, mind, brain, and the outer world of forces. And 3, spirit, soul, and body within the great whole. This presupposes real spiritual attainment and the capacity, therefore, to function as a soul. Until this has been achieved, one can be an aspirant to the practice of white magic, but one is not yet a white magician. Second, he must recognize the city that stands foursquare. He must understand the meaning of man, the cube, and this in 3 ways. 1, himself as a human being. 2, his fellow man in relation to himself and the whole. 3, the 4th kingdom in nature, the human kingdom, viewing that entire kingdom as an entity, an organized life functioning on the physical plane, indwelt by soul, and animated by spirit. This means, therefore, that as a man, he is responsive to his kind and is aware also of the purpose of the kingdom to which he belongs. This can best be expressed in some wonderful words from an ancient writing in the master's archives. It is said to date back to early Atlantean times. The material on which the writing is found is so old and so frail that all that the masters themselves can touch and see is a precipitation made from it, the original being kept at Shambhala. It runs thus with certain deletions, which it is wiser not to insert. So unquote, at the four corners of the square, the four angelic are seen. Orange they are, but veiled in rosy light. Within each form, the yellow flame is seen, and round each form, the blue. 4 words they utter forth, one for each human race, but not the sacred sound which bringeth forth the 7th. 2 words have died away, 4 sound today. One sounds in realms so high that man can enter not as man. Thus are the 7 words of man ringing around the square, passing from mouth to mouth. Each day of man the words take form and different seem. In the words will be as follows. From out the north a word is chanted forth, which means be pure. From out the south the word peals out, I dedicate. And from out the east, bringing a light divine, the word comes swinging round the square, love all. From out the west, answer is thrown back, I serve. This is a faint effort to express in English these ancient Atlantean phrases, older than Sanskrit or Senzar, and known only to a mere handful of the members of the present hierarchy. But in the thoughts of purity, dedication, love, and service are summed up the nature and the destiny of man, and it should be remembered that they do not stand for so-called spiritual qualities, but for potent occult forces, dynamic in their incentive and creative in their result. This should be pondered on carefully by all aspirants. We have consequently, with these 4, added to the first one, spiritual attainment, 5 of the qualifications of the white magician. Third, the white magician must recognize the cross which stands in the heavens upon which the cosmic Christ is crucified, and on which the white magician, being a cell in the body of the cosmic Christ, is also crucified. Technically and astrologically speaking, in this present eon, he must understand the inner significance of Taurus, of Leo, of Scorpio, and of Aquarius, for they are potent in our world cycle. He must, if I may express it symbolically, and yet at the same time accurately, be able to utter forth the achievement which is the goal of his endeavor in each of these 4 signs and under each of these 4 powers. In Taurus, he must be able to say, I seek illumination and am myself the light. In Leo, he will say, I know myself to be the one. I rule by law. The word he will utter forth in Scorpio will be, illusion cannot hold me. I am the bird that flies with utter freedom. And in Aquarius, the word spoken will be, I am the server, and I, the dispenser, am of living water. These occult qualifications, upon which I have thus lightly touched, must be closely studied by the aspirant, and as he studies them and lives by these rules, various qualifications will emerge and will distinguish him. It must be remembered that all that I have here said has a different meaning on each plane and in relation to the 7 stages of consciousness, as these express themselves in these 7 fields of awareness. Finally, as far as the aspirant who reads the instructions is concerned, he must have transcended the 4 noble truths, learned the meaning of the 4 gospels, understood the significance and purpose of the 4 elements, earth, water, fire, and air, and esoterically speaking, passed as a savior through the 4 kingdoms. This latter phrase will only be really understood at the 4th initiation. Yes.
So, I'm always just bouncing everything off of the chart. So we look at Taurus, and it's physical, right? And can you go back up just slightly?
Yeah.
Where we were talking about this.
Right here.
So I would say we're looking here at these 4 planes of the human, and that's a square, right? They create the square, right? On the zodiac, and would be, so yeah. So earth, water, fire, air. So we're looking at evolution in a way, and pretty, I can't go much further than that, but we just see that it can be understood. It's there, it fits. And there's the 4. All right, yes, and and it's said a lot, we're in the square, right? And when the square is unfolded, it turns into the cross. If you unfold the square, literally, it turns into the cross. Now, I think Annie Besant, or studying consciousness or something, would be a good place to look at that, because she discusses, the philosopher's stone, essentially, right? Because you have the circle inside the square and the triangle, all that. So anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want, we can look at this chart all the time, and it's usually there, the connections.
The latter phrase will only be understood at the 4th initiation. When he has done this, he can say, desire holds me not, with freedom now I stand. I desire all and nothing. I live and die, am offered up and rise again. I come and go at will. Earth lies beneath my feet, and water laves my form. The fire destroys that which impedes my way, and master of the air am I. Through all the world of forms my feet have passed. All now exist for me, and I, the servant of the whole, persist. Study these words and note how the concept of the ideal requirements which constitute the equipment of the white magician has steadily grown. I could enlarge on many other quaternaries, but the few just quoted suffice to show some of the recognitions towards which the aspirant strives. The only other one which I will note is that referred to as the violet 4, or the 4 types of energy which constitute the vital or etheric body of all forms in the natural world. Here again, we have a higher 3 and a lower 1, whichever indicates the 3 aspects or principles of divinity and the form through which these 3 must manifest. Spirit, soul, and body express the same idea from another angle, added to that which is produced through their interaction. It must ever be remembered that form, the point of view of reality, what we call the dense physical body, tangible and objective, is but an illusion. We are told again and again in the ancient writings that it is not a principle. Why is this so? Because it is only an appearance brought about by the merging of the higher 3 and the 4th. This appearance is a fiction or a figment of the human mind. I speak not in parable. Utterly.
Hey, hello, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding, it's an illusion. Wait, what? Yeah, I said I'm not kidding. It's not a fiction. It's a figment of your imagination.
I utter only facts in nature, and one that is slowly coming into mature consideration among the philosophers of both hemispheres. Both in the solar system, the macrocosm of the microcosm, and likewise in the microcosm, there are ever the 3 highest planes, which embody the principles and produce the dynamic purpose, and which constitute the 4 levels of the etheric body of both God and man, viewing them from what we call the energy or physical angle. These 4 are reflected in the 4 levels of the etheric division of the physical plane, as regards the physical body of all forms. These 4 etheric levels, or these 4 grades of vital substance, constitute what is called the true form of all material objects or phenomena, and they are responsive to the 4 higher types of spiritual energy, which we usually call divine. This relation between the prototypal trinity and its plane of merging and the etheric reflection is found in all forms according to the type of energy which predominates. In each of the 4 kingdoms in nature, all 4 types are found, but the 4th etheric is found in fuller degree in the mineral kingdom than in the human, whilst the highest of the 4 ethers is found in greater proportion in the human than in the other 3 kingdoms. This which I tell you is apt to be found confusing by the neophyte, for the words energy, dynamic purpose, vitality, and etheric substance mean little to the beginner, but they serve to indicate some of the knowledge which the worker in white magic has to grasp. This I might illustrate, for instance, by stating that working in the mineral kingdom, the 4th kingdom in nature from the standpoint of God, and the 1st from the standpoint of time and space, he will work with the 4th cosmic ether, the Buddhic energy, utilizing ether of the 4th grade in his own body as the transmitting agent, and so on in connection with the other 3 kingdoms in nature. One of the secrets not yet revealed, fortunately, is concerned with the question as to whether light violet is the color of the highest or the lowest of the 4, and this will not be revealed for some time to come. The consideration of these various quaternaries, which it is necessary that the white magician understand, and the qualifications which he must possess before he is permitted to carry forward the magical work, leads to the following question. Is there some basic formula or proposition which must govern the magical activity? This question is, of course, too general and vague, but until the inclusiveness of the human mind is greater than is now the case, such questions will inevitably be asked. I can, however, give a short reply which holds in it the clue to the entire process. When correctly understood, it will govern the method of work and the thought life of the worker in white magic. My answer is this: potencies produce precipitation. In those 3 words lies the entire story. They sum up the history of the creator and the life story and environing conditions of every human being. They account for all that is and lie back of the law of rebirth. These potencies are driven into activity by the power of thought, and hence in training them to be creators and in teaching them to govern and control their own destinies, the teachers of the race begin with the mind aspect of aspirants. They emphasize that which will govern the potencies. They deal with that which produces the objective form, which is qualified by them, is energized by them, and which fulfills the purpose of the thinker. A thinker, then, is the essential factor, and it will become apparent to you, therefore, as you study these words, just what is going on in the world of today. The trend of our modern civilization, in spite of all its mistakes and errors, is to produce thinkers. Education, books, travel, in its many and varied forms, enunciations of science and of philosophy, and the driving inner urge which we call religious, but which is, in fact, the drive towards truth and its mental verification. All these factors have one objective, and this is to produce thinkers. Given a real thinker, you have an incipient creator, and unconsciously at first, but consciously later on, one who will wield power in order to precipitate or cause to emerge objective forms. These forms will either be in line with divine purpose and plan, and consequently will further the cause of evolution, or they will be animated by personal intent, characterized by separated selfish purpose, and constitute therefore part of the work of the retroactive forces and the material element. They will be of the nature of black magic. Again, the 4 appear. 1, the thinker. 2, the potency. 3, the quality of that potency. And 4, the precipitation. That concludes the first subsection of Rule 13. Looks like
As you're reading that, sir.
Yeah.
And if we sit back as the observer and look at this, how incredible it is that we are reading this in form, and both in form and as an observer.
Right.
And it's just amazing when we really dig into as thinkers, right? Because certainly if you're reading this, you are a thinker, and being trained as such on a very incredible level of that, I would say. So just to be sitting here with this mathematics, looking out at this screen, to be seeing this and receiving this training into the lower worlds, into the brain, and into the physical, is quite the gift at this stage, I would say.
Yeah.
It's not fully this is an advanced type of thing. You're in the advanced class. It's really incredible. I don't know how to put that into all the words that I was trying to, but that's what I'd come across, and I'm thinking, this is incredible. It's one thing to be spiritual, it's another thing to be on the physical plane and reading about this stuff, is what I'm saying.
Right.
And learning this, instead of how to, go fish or play baseball or something, or what.
Well, even therein, though, there's probably expectation of a certain level of mental thinking involved. But anyway.
Oh no, it's all appropriate, but I'm just thinking, what a gift.
As I read that bit about fulfilling the purpose of the thinker, does that at all negate the conversation you and I were having earlier before we started the video about not thinking? And just being comfortable.
This is white magic. So this does involve the mental plane and thought form building and all the above,
Right.
meditation and but also, as we get comfortable in these things and learn them and build it into the system, I want to say it becomes fully natural at some point. It's
Like
no longer
nature. Right.
Yeah, right now we're, this is part of it or whatever, but I want to say, and I'm sure he'll explain this in this next section, actually. What we're getting at here. No, it's good questions, though. I mean, sure.
I think there might be a differentiation between just standard thinking and intelligent thought too. So, but we'll see. Let's see what he says. So yeah, we got about 9 pages. I'm just going to keep pushing forward if you don't mind. I know we've probably already been reading for about 40 minutes, but
let's go.
Let's do it. I think we can rip through these 9 pages. We'll see. The precipitation of thought forms. What is a precipitation? Many definitions could be given, and most of them, being clothed in words, would lose much of their true significance, but some idea may be conveyed in the following terms. A precipitation is an aggregation of energies arranged in a certain form in order to express the idea of some creative thinker, and qualified or characterized by the nature of his thought and held in that peculiar form as long as his thought remains dynamic. These words are an attempt to express a symbol found in the same ancient book, or rather compilation, referred to earlier in our consideration of Rule 13. Certainly, these symbols emerging from the remote past constitute the working tools, if I might so express it, of the thinkers who guide our racial and planetary evolution. This particular symbol might be described as follows. A blazing sun forms the background, and at the very center of that sun appears an eye. Projecting downwards toward the right, from this eye pours forth a stream of energy in the form of a beam of light. It rays outward, widening towards the end into a second circle, and in that circle is a cross resembling what is called a Maltese cross. At the center of the cross is another eye. Within the eye, the sacred word. Between the arms of the cross forming, therefore, another cross is the swastika, the arms emerging from behind the Maltese cross. At the bottom of the page whereon this symbol is found are 4 geometrical forms. Some of these are referred to by Blavatsky, A.A.B, and were taken by her from this ancient picture. They are well known, but seldom applied by esotericists to the creative work. They are the cube, the 5-pointed star, the 6-pointed star, and the 8-sided diamond, superimposed one upon the other. They constitute, therefore, the base of the symbol. A.A.B refers also to the point, the line, and the circle, but these, with the triangle, have been exoterically applied to deity and the manifested universe. Excuse me. Later, these other forms will also be applied to God and to man in the exoteric sense, but this will only be when the truths of the ageless wisdom are universally recognized. The laws of thought are the laws of creation, and the entire creative work is carried forward on the etheric level. This constitutes practically a second formula. The creator of the solar system confines his attention to the work performed on what we call the 4 higher planes of our system. The lower 3, constituting the cosmic dense physical plane, are in the nature of precipitation. They are objective because the matter of space responds to or is attracted by the potency of the 4 higher etheric vibrations. These, in their turn, are motivated or swept into activity by the dynamic impact of the divine thought. There is a similar procedure where man is concerned. Just as soon as man becomes a thinker and can formulate his thought, desire its manifestation, and can energize by recognition the 4 ethers, a dense physical manifestation is inevitable. He will attract by his pranic energy, colored by desire, high or low, and animated by the potency of his thought, just as much of the responsive matter in space as is needed to give body to his form. Much of this is dealt with in a treatise on cosmic fire, and as these instructions are intended to deal with the inner development of the aspirant, I shall not carry these ideas further beyond prophesying with that within 50 years, the true significance and precipitations which significance of precipitations will be engrossing the attention of the scientists. Occult students would do well to give the subject careful thought. It can be approached in 2 ways. There is, first of all, the study of the objective world in which the individual aspirant finds himself. He will need to consider the fact that his body of manifestation is a precipitation, that it is a result of his potent thought and desire, and of his recognition of the 4 ethers. He will need to understand that this form which he has created will persist just as long as the dynamic power of his thought holds it together, and that it will dissipate when he, occultly speaking, takes his eye away. He will need to consider also that his environment is the result of the work of an aggregate of group thinkers, group to which he belongs. This concept can be traced back all the way from a family group to the group of egos who, closely interlinked, form a group on the higher level of the mental plane, and on again to the 7 major thinkers of the universe, the lords of the 7 rays. These 7, in their turn, are swept into activity by the 3 supreme magical workers, the manifested Trinity. These 3, in due course, will be recognized as responsive to the thought of the one creator, the unmanifested Logos. Further, the word recognition is one of the most important in the language of occultism and holds the clue to the mystery of being. It is related to karmic activity, and on it the lords of time and space depend. It is hard to illustrate this in simple terms, but it might be said that the problem of God himself consists in this, that he must manifest a threefold recognition. First, recognition of the past, which necessarily involves a recognition of that matter in space, which is, through past association, already colored by thought and purpose. Two, recognition of the four grades of lives, which, again, through past association, are capable of response to his new thought for the present, and can therefore carry out his plans and work in collaboration with him. They subject their individual purpose to the one divine plan. And three, recognition of the objective which exists in his mind. This, in its turn, necessitates a one-pointed focusing upon the goal and the holding of the purpose intact throughout the vicissitudes of the creative work, and in spite of the potency of the many divine thinkers who have been attracted to him by similarity of idea. It is hopeless to attempt to avoid the use of personal pronouns when talking pictorially and symbolically. That the student will bear in mind that such an attempt to reduce cosmic principles and concepts to words is in itself ridiculous, and that the only possible thing to do is to present a picture that no harm can eventuate. But the picture changes as evolution proceeds upon its way, and the picture of today will at a later date be deemed no better than a child's rough scrawl. A new picture will then be presented, simpler and more harmonious and more beautiful, until it, in its turn, is deemed inadequate. The same recognitions on a lesser scale govern the activities of the solar angel as he proceeds with the work of incarnation and of manifestation upon the physical plane. He has, in his turn, to recognize the matter of the three planes of human expression, which are already, through past association, colored by his vibration. He has to recognize the groups of lives with which he has had relation and with which he again must work. Finally, he has, throughout the tiny cycle of an incarnation, to hold his purpose steady and to see that each life carries that purpose forward into fuller manifestation and completion. The work of the human being also, as he endeavors to become a creative thinker, lies along analogous lines. His creative work will be successful if he can recognize the tendency of his mind as that tendency emerges through the medium of his present interests, for these have their roots in the past. It will be successful if he can recognize the vibration of the group of lives in line with whose thought his creative work must proceed, for unlike the deity in the solar system, he cannot work sole and alone. And who shall say whether in those greater spheres of existence in which our deity plays his part, he is any more free from cosmic group influences than the human individual is free from impression by his environing impulses. He has to recognize the purpose for which he has deemed it wise to build a thought form, and he must hold that purpose steady and unimpaired throughout the whole period of objectivity. This we call one-pointed attention, and this creative work is one of the as yet unrecognized goals of the meditation process. Hitherto, the emphasis has been laid on the achieving of a focused attention and on the necessity, when that has been attained, of coming in touch with the soul, the spiritual thinker. But the later decades will see the emerging of a technique of creation. When soul, mind, and brain are unified, and facility and unification has been achieved, further instructions will be given in the creative art. Meditation is the first basic lesson given when men have achieved the capacity to function on the mental plane. Down the great cycle upon the wheel of rebirth, the idea of the solar angel is attaining definite concretion. A treatise on cosmic fire, see page 10, 1024, Each life sees the initial purpose. Clarified in time is literally the length of a thought. The same basic truth underlies the creation of all forms on the physical plane, whether it is a thought form embodying the urgent desire of a man for selfish acquisition, or that thought form which we call a group or an organization, and which is animated by the unselfish purpose and embodies one disciple's mode of helping humanity. It underlies group work regarding a group as an entity. If a group could appreciate the power of this fact and recognize its opportunity, it could, by its one-pointed fixity of purpose and its focused attention to the spiritual objective, perform miracles in salvaging the world. I here appeal to all who read these words to reconsecrate themselves and to recognize the opportunity they have of a united effort towards world usefulness. It might be of use here if I express quite simply the requirements needed to bring about the manifestation of individual spiritual purpose or of group spiritual purpose. These can be summed up in 3 words. 1, power. 2, detachment. And 3, non-criticism. So often simple words are used because of their everyday connotation, their true significance and esoteric value are lost. Let me give you a few thoughts, and then each of these, which with application only to the creative work of white magic. Power is dependent for expression upon 2 factors. A, singleness of purpose, and B, lack of impediments. Students would be amazed if they could see their motives as we see them who guide on the subjective side of experience. Mixed motive is universal. Pure motive is rare, and where it exists, there is ever success and achievement. Such pure motive can be entirely selfish and personal, or unselfish and spiritual, and in between, where aspirants are concerned, mixed in varying degree. According, however, to the purity of intent and the singleness of purpose, so will be the potency. The Master of all the Masters has said, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light." These words which he enunciated give us a principle underlying all the creative work, and we can link up the idea which he clothed in words with the symbol I have earlier described in this treatise. Power, light, vitality, and manifestation. Such is the true procedure. It will be obvious, therefore, why the manifested unit, man, is urged to be vital in his search and to cultivate his aspiration. When that aspiration is strong enough, he is then urged to achieve the capacity to hold his mind steady in the light. When he can do this, he will achieve power and possess that single eye which will redound to the glory of the indwelling divinity. Before, however, he has mastered this process of development, he may not be trusted with power. The procedure is as follows. The individual aspirant begins to manifest somewhat sole purpose in his life on the physical plane. He is transmuting desire into aspiration, but that aspiration is vital and real. He is learning the meaning of light. When he has mastered the technique of meditation, and with this certain schools in existence at present are concerned, he can proceed to handle power, because he will have learned to function as a divine thinker. He is now cooperative and is in touch with the divine purpose. As all true students know, however, the number of impediments is legion. Hindrances and obstacles abound. Singleness and purpose may occasionally be realized in high moments, but it does not abide with us always. There are hindrances of physical nature, of heredity and environment, of character, of time and conditions, of world karma, as well as individual karma. What shall then be done? I have only one word to say, and that is persist. Failure never prevents success. Difficulties develop the strength of the soul. The secret of success is ever to stand steady and to be impersonal. The second requirement is detachment. The worker in white magic must hold himself free as much as he can from identifying himself with that which he has created or has attempted to create. The secret for all aspirants is to cultivate the attitude of the onlooker and of the silent watcher, and may I emphasize the word silent. Much true magical work comes to naught because of the failure of the worker and builder in matter to keep silent. By premature speech and too much talk, he slays that which he has attempted to create. The child of his thought is stillborn. All workers in the field of the world should recognize the need for silent detachment, and the work before every student who reads these instructions must consist in cultivating a detached attitude. It is a mental detachment which enables the thinker to dwell ever in the high and secret place, and from that center of peace calmly and powerfully to carry out the work he has set before himself. He works in the world of men. He loves and comforts and serves. He pays no attention to his personality, likes and dislikes, or to his prejudices and attachments. He stands as a rock of strength and as a strong hand in the dark to all whom he contacts. The cultivation of a detached attitude personally, with the attached attitude spiritually, will cut at the very roots of a man's life, but it will render back 1,000-fold for all that it cuts away. I know we talked about that earlier. Much has been written in that attachment and the need to develop detachment. May I beg all students in the urgency of the present situation to leave off reading and thinking about it aspirationally and to begin to practice it and demonstrate it. Non-criticism is the third requirement. What shall I say about that? Why is it regarded as so essential a requirement? Because criticism, analysis, and consequently separativeness is the outstanding characteristic of mental types and also of all coordinated personalities. Because criticism is a potent factor in swinging mental and emotional substance into activity, and so making strong impress upon the brain cells and working out into words. Because in a sudden burst of critical thought, the entire personality can be galvanized into a potent coordination, but of a wrong kind and with disastrous results. Because criticism, being a faculty of the lower mind, can hurt and wound, and no man can proceed upon the way as long as wounds are made and pain is knowingly given. Because the work of white magic and the carrying out of hierarchical purpose meets with basic hindrances in the relations existing between its workers and disciples. In the pressure of the present opportunity, there is no time for criticism to exist between workers. They hinder each other, and they hinder the work. I have upon me at this time a sense of urgency. I urge upon all those who read these instructions to forget their likes and their dislikes, and to overlook the personality hindrances which inevitably exist in themselves and in all who work upon the physical plane, handicapped by the personality. I urge upon all workers the remembrance that the day of opportunity is with us and that it has its term. This present type of opportunity will not last forever. The pettiness of the human frictions, the failures to understand each other, the little faults which have their roots in personality and which are, after all, ephemeral, the ambitions and illusions must all go. If the workers would practice detachment, knowing that the law works and that God's purpose must come to an ultimate conclusion, and if they would learn never to criticize in thought or word, the salvaging of the world would proceed apace, and the new age of love and illumination would be ushered in. And there concludes Rule 13. Very powerful towards the end there. You're muted.
Yeah, this is the teachings, be silent. This is the teachings of the Buddha. This is, when the Bible says don't judge, I mean, practice detachment, dispassion. This is yoga. This is Buddha. This is everything wrapped up in one in this last couple paragraphs here. And the way to do it for the viewer that's watching this is through knowledge of the need to do this.
Mhm.
So once we have the knowledge of it, we're working in that direction, because from this point on, you can't help but catch yourself every time that you begin to judge. And then if you can catch yourself, and this is knowledge, if we're catching ourselves, and then the next time it comes around and we're about to blabber something out, you may be more likely to not blabber it out. And then you caught yourself when you do blabber it out later again on accident, because you then realized it did change your environment, and you
Right.
don't, it's not good. It has no benefit. So yeah, we're learning through experience that this is also the case. And then through experience, we learn not to criticize. You can't just say, if that's in your personality, don't criticize without learning why not to. But now we have the educational reason why, and then we'll have the experiential reason, and then you inevitably will just stop to a certain and what you just won't do it anymore. It takes a long time though. This is not something that happens, overnight. This detachment and being the observer, and this is good ways into the process. It's really incredible stuff. And then becoming silent, and then how silent is silence,
Right.
And it's like, well, it starts out by just being silent for, a few seconds. Well, then I think Patanjali says to hold the mind steady for 12 seconds is a fantastic achievement, right? And then, from there, it's, I believe it's probably there for you at that point, or, thereafter. I don't know. It's a process.
Yep. And one must persist. As it says here in the
As we have, yeah, man, in our daily life, we have all sorts of predilections to things, and then our desire, what we want our environment to feel like or look like, or we have these ideas of what other people's life should look like and what they should be doing and how our kids should act. And
well, that's part of what we need to detach ourselves from, is the worry and kind of anticipation of what the result should be or needs to be. The point is, I think, having this singleness of purpose, like it says here, is the part of this power section, and to be silent with it and just persist with it and not worry so much about, I guess, the outcome.
this is a practice. This is a learned thing, and it's learned in our daily environment, in the crucible of daily living.
Yeah.
And then, eventually, the next thing you know, you find yourself holding your tongue and holding your peace, and keeping your peace, and not becoming involved in, something that you would normally have been involved in, or some sort of emotional event that normally would have set you off. You say, oh, well, that did not trigger me. And then you find, gradually that things stop triggering you altogether because you have no attachment to the outcome, like we're talking about.
Right.
And then when we let people be who they are, we're really letting them be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just being ourselves. So then then the atmosphere is very relaxed and quiet, and like we were talking about, your environment just becomes very, very peaceful. Yeah, detachment comes up, continuous. It's always there, dispassion, detachment, non-attachment, however, all these different ways to look at it. Non-criticism, you could just say don't judge too, that's being, that's don't, and that's biblical as well. And when as soon as we stop judging, that it doesn't take long for us to be, that's an extra freedom. There's a lot of freedom in that.
So this is where was I going with this?
This power, when you grab your own power and you finally, when we stand up for ourselves, there's a lot of power in that too. Right? When we I don't want to say separate ourselves, when we extricate ourselves from the collective, right? There's a level of power, detachment, and non-criticism all wrapped up in pulling ourselves out of the collective and becoming more individualized.
Well, that is the goal, and that's where we're supposed to be pointing ourselves in this. And as we read through these, with power, in order to gain that, you have to have a singleness of purpose and lack of impediments. You have to be detached from all of this in a way. And like you said, we can't judge. But it's interesting because in order to gain all of this, there has to be a rebirth with everybody, because we have been so conditioned to find ourselves attached to things and have tendencies to be critical of others, because there's some expectation of that when you go into the workplace, that you have to basically judge those around you who are there to serve their purpose. And so it's just, my point is that there needs to be a rebirth with everybody in order to kind of overcome these elements that are discussed here that are needed.
I think the rebirth part came when, if you're reading this, it probably already came.
Yeah.
Because we're moving on.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
So this is possible.
I'm just making the point that it's absolutely possible. But there's a level of difficulty for some to overcome that hump. Because we've all been so conditioned to be a certain way, look at things a certain way, just over the process of time. And it's because we've been held back, to a sense, to keep us lower, hold us lower, and not achieve these higher levels, right? I'm just saying.
Well, and we've heard this, and I think you and I have probably heard this many, many, many times before by the Hindus or Buddhists or some of the sages and saints and whatnot. I say, don't be involved in the particulars. The consciousness of the observer and the higher, more expanded levels of consciousness do not get into particulars. It deals more, not even with meaning, because on the mental plane, we're looking for the meaning. We're looking at symbols, and we're kind of discerning what these things mean on individual, what does this part of our life mean? What does that mean?
Right.
But on the intuitional level, you're not looking at particulars, we're looking at significance, like because you're taking the whole thing into consideration at that point. You're not looking at individual aspects of the thing. And then, on a higher, we're removing one of the reflections, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. We're not even looking at this reflection. We're looking at it from a much broader, zoomed out perspective. And then we're even potentially looking at the reason and the logic behind what we're looking at, or I guess you could say. So we go back and forth with this for a while though, too, it's not, because for some of the day you spend time in particulars, and some of the day you end up being the observer, and then these things take time. And then some of the day, you're dispassionate, you're non-critic, you don't criticize, and you're in your power. And then other times of the day, you lose it for a minute, you're in it, you're deep in the weeds. So we just recognize these things for a while. We become, just constant awareness is what allows us to think our way out of this, I believe. And eventually we do. And all these saints, and if you listen to Nisargadatta and these guys, they'll say, and I, we tell our kids, this is a thinking man's game, and you have to think
Right.
your way out of this. But we have to think our way out of it to get to non-thinking.
Yep.
Right. So like you think so hard that you break the thing, and now you don't think no more. Except then you begin to use the mind as a tool in this process. It becomes something that we're using now, not something that we're being used by. So, yeah, it's good, man. It's good. This is a powerful chapter. Again, it always is.
I was just gonna say, every single one has been powerful.
No idle words. Yeah, no idle words spoken here.
All right. Well, I think
Yeah,
that
good
wraps
deal.
it up for this week. We'll pick up Rule 14. We're nearing the end. I think, what is it? We've got 2 left, 14 and 15. So it looks like Rule 14 is a bit on the long side. So we'll see where we get through with that next week. But
Well, we're getting pretty close to the end.
we
of the
are.
book.
We
There's
are.
15 rules, right?
15 rules. Yep.
So, yeah, we only have what? Look at that. 561 of 597.
So that's a good 36 pages. So
Yeah.
doubt we'll get through that in one session, but we'll see. So
All right, buddy.
We'll take it in stride. All right, man. As
Yeah,
always,
sounds good.
it's been
Happy
enlightening.
Mother's Day. Yeah,
Yes.
to everybody. Yeah.
Happy Mother's Day.
Your mom and wife and all the women of the world. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
See you all next time.